On to the US presidential race now. Georgia judge on Tuesday temporarily blocked a new rule requiring labor-intensive counting of potentially millions of ballots in the US presidential election. Georgia, where early voting began on Tuesday, is one of the 7 states likely to determine the contest between Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his Democratic opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's more in our next report.
Voters in Georgia turned out in record numbers as the battleground state opened early voting for the 5th of November presidential election. Georgia had posted record turnout for the first day of early voting within 6 hours of polls opening, where 16 electoral votes are up for grabs. In many states, early voting is already underway. Georgia's Secretary of State said at least 251,000 votes have already been cast. Georgia is one of the 7 competitive battleground states expected to play a decisive role in deciding the election outcome. Early voting will continue until November 1st, with some counties offering additional voting on Saturdays and Sundays. Meanwhile, a Fulton County judge in Georgia ruled that certifying elections is a required duty of county election boards and they're not allowed to refuse the results based on suspicion of miscounts or fraud. Former US President Donald Trump on Tuesday rallied his supporters in Atlanta, Georgia, as voters in the state turned out in record numbers to cast their ballots early.
They did something to Biden that was amazing. They stole the election from him. I mean, I'm not a fan of Biden. Who could be? But they stole the election. They took it away like candy from a baby. And he's angry. And they're all angry. They're angry as hell. I think he likes me more than he likes her. Can you believe it?
Following an interview with radio host Charlamagne Tha God, US Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris spoke to a small crowd at a viewing party on Tuesday about her connection to Detroit and her plans for tax credits to raise kids and start businesses.
A big part of my plan is to build what I call an opportunity economy, which includes for home ownership, giving people who are first-time homeowners a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to buy their first home.
Harris and Trump are locked in a tight race ahead of the November 5 election, which is expected to be decided by slim margins and where neither side can afford any defections from the main voter bases their parties count on. Ayushi Bhatnagar for DD India.
DD India's Amritpal Singh is with us from California for more on the story. Amrit, why is there so much enthusiasm in the voters of Georgia? And is it something specific to Georgia, or is this sentiment visible across the country?
You know, the enthusiasm in Georgia could be attributed to the contest being so very, very close. Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have been concentrating. Donald Trump was in Atlanta, the capital of Georgia, to campaign. He rigged up the issue of illegal immigrants. Now, this is a southeastern state, really, and it is a swing state. The contest is very, very close. So both, with 16 votes in its kitty, it is a pretty sought-after state after, say, Pennsylvania, which is which is the largest in terms of the vote count of the electors in the swing states. I mean, there are other big states like California and Texas, etc., which have huge numbers, but they are either, like California is a blue state, or which votes primarily for or traditionally for the Democrats. Texas is a red state which votes for the Republicans, but it is these swing states which swing either way in each election, and in a way decide who the next president of the United States would be. And that's why the turnout, the record turnout in Georgia is of great interest to voters here, political watchers, and of course both parties and their candidates, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Kamala Harris will be here on Saturday to campaign in Georgia. So essentially trying to woo the black voter, because the black voter forms a sizable population. They're about 1/3 of the total voters in Georgia itself. And if you see, Donald Trump yesterday said that illegal immigrants are taking away black jobs, essentially trying to woo the black voter base there. Kamala also trying to woo the black male voter. She announced a policy decision last week where giving 1 million loans, unsecured loans or forgivable loans as they're called here, up to $20,000 to people from disadvantaged communities, essentially looking at the black male voter, because some surveys suggested that the black vote was slipping away from the Democrats because they believe the Democrats haven't done enough.
Amrit, you mentioned of the swing states. Tell us, why are they so important in the US elections this time?
Okay, swing states are basically states which could vote either way. How the US is, traditionally divided is that there are some states called the red states. The red states primarily or traditionally vote or tend to vote for the Republicans. The states which are called the blue states, which are mainly the coastal states, both on the east and the west coast. States like California, states like Washington, states like New York, New Jersey, Maine. They are Delaware. They are what are called the blue states. They vote traditionally for the Democrats.
All right, that was Amrit.